So in a few days, it's going to be my birthday, right? And instead of falling into a massive pit of existential dread as is usual, I instead decided to take a look back at my origin story in this weird little world we live in, because even though I only started watching professional wrestling proper in about 2009, it's always been a part of my life, to a point where, I'll be honest, I don't know if I would exist if it wasn't for professional wrestling. And today, we're gonna talk about that. So, fun fact, my parents are complete and total opposites. My mom is a hardcore 80s rocker chick who came from a long line of bootleggers and mischief makers, while my dad is a big old dork who listens to a lot of Barry Manilow and Air Supply. So they don't exactly match up on paper. And I'll be honest, if they met each other in high school, my mom probably would have just bullied the shit out of my dad incessantly. So I guess it's a really good thing they met a little bit later in their lives. The only problem is that when my dad went to ask my mom out on their first official date, there was a big issue. And that issue was the fact that the day of that date was the exact same date as Superbrawl 1, the first ever Superbrawl from WCW, and my mom tensed as she had to try to explain to my dad how the girl that he liked was a massive professional wrestling fan. But instead, my dad's eyes lit up. He was excited. He loved professional wrestling, from old school NWA to AWA, all the way up to WCW and WWF. He was a massive fan and immediately asked if he could come over and watch Superbrawl with them, because professional wrestling is for everyone. It unites everyone. The dorks, the rockers, everyone all can come together under the banner of professional wrestling. And who knows, if it wasn't for Superbrawl 1, if it wasn't for the fact that both of my parents were massive wrestling fans, they may have never gotten together, may have never gotten married, had a kid, and that kid never would have 33 years later made a weird video about the stupid pay-per-view they watched back in 1991. Now, I don't know if you've ever watched a wrestling pay-per-view that's responsible for your entire existence, but it's a little bit nerve-wracking, I'll say. I mean, what if the show's bad? What if it was the December to dismember of its era? Well, I aimed to find out. So much so that I even foregoed the world of streaming and Peacock and went to the original VHS release. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I pulled out a whole-ass VCR to get the true 1991 experience of checking out Superbrawl. And folks, I'm here to tell you, this show is actually really fucking good. It is a really good show, so much so that it actually started to make me rethink a lot of the common tropes, themes, and cliches that we see in modern professional wrestling, and the fact that we honestly don't need a whole lot of them to put on a compelling professional wrestling program. It honestly reminded me a whole lot of modern independent wrestling. It felt a lot more Wild West. It felt a whole lot more unpredictable. You never knew what was going to happen next. And it also, as cheesy as this sounds, kind of felt more baked with love, if that made sense. It felt a whole lot less poisoned by the backstage politics that would come along with guys like Hogan and HBK. It felt like professional wrestlers putting on a professional wrestling show, which was super refreshing to see. The show starts with the fabulous Freebirds taking on the team of the Young Pistols, aka Scott Armstrong and Tracy Smothers, the Wild-Eyed Southern Boys. And this was a hell of an opening tag match that had two teams with an incredulous amount of swagger about them. I mean, nobody today doing it like Michael P.S. Hayes, and that's a damn fact. The match ends when, Okay, I'm not really sure how else to explain it. Just a big fucking bird, like a big ass bird, runs down to the ring, hits the Pistols with tornado DDTs, knocks them out, and the fabulous Freebirds get the victory. I'm realizing I'm not selling this that well, but it was a really fucking good match, even if a whole ass cryptid came down at the end and hit Tracy Smothers with a DDT. Up next, we have Barry Windham taking on Flying Brian Pillman in a taped fists match to end their blood feud. And a taped fist match, for those of you youngins in professional wrestling, is something that even I didn't really know existed, because a lot of dudes tape their fists nowadays, but back in the 90s, if you taped your fists in kayfabe, it essentially made them hard rocks that you could strike your opponent with. Also, it was a match that allowed closed fists, as opposed to slaps and chops and all the other various attacks you get at your disposal in professional wrestling. I'm realizing I'm going on way too long about this. Basically, they beat the shit out of each other for a pretty long time, and it was a good match for Flying Brian, who was kind of known as a high flyer at this point. It allowed him to show the crowd a different side of him, to get out that brawler side of him. We almost got to see shades of the future loose cannon Brian Pillman before he unfortunately falls prey to a low blow, and of course, one of the signature superplexes of Windham to end the match. 1, 2, 3. Well, seems like the show's going pretty good so far. We had a great opening tag team match, then the blow-off of a vicious blood feud. The show's really starting off hot. What can come next?
Ladies and gentlemen, the following contest is the Battle of the Giants Stretcher Match.
Oh,
Now, ladies and
great. Sid Vicious and El Gigante. So I know what you're asking yourself, Scottye. What in the world are the rules of a stretcher match? And I'm here to tell you, doesn't fucking matter, because after El Gigante, aka the future giant Gonzalez, carries the stretcher down to the ring, it barely plays any part in this short 3 match at all. In fact, usually in like a normal stretcher match, you have to stretcher your opponent up the ramp. Nah, fucking El Gigante just gets the claw in on Sid, pins him to the mat, 1, 2, 3, and that's the fucking end of the match. It was, my favorite thing about it is the fact that it was only 3 minutes long. And then after the match, for some reason, Kevin Sullivan and the one-man gang decide to feel frisky, rush down to the ring, attack El Gigante, and immediately get their shit pushed in before, unfortunately, Kevin Sullivan resorts to one of the most deadly tools in the arsenal of a heel in the early 90s.
Pocket sand.
At which point, Sullivan and the one-man gang beat down Gigante, put him on the stretcher, and that's it. That was it. That was the whole fucking thing. A little bit of a dip in quality, I'll say, but luckily up next we get another blood feud to raise the stakes back up. It's Butch Reed versus Ron Simmons in the first and only ever, I believe, Thunderdoom cage match, which, holy shit, that's a fucking great name. Thunderdoom? Are you kidding me? That rules. So, it's a Thunderdoom cage match. Teddy Long gets locked in a shark cage and raised above the ring. It's a blood feud between these two former tag team partners, and it's kind of really slow and plotting, to be honest with you. Like, it does not live up to the name Thunderdoom at all, as they work a very slow back and forth pace, attempting their best to get some heats on Butch Reed while Ron Simmons gets the shit beaten out of him, basically. The match ends when Teddy Long, who, let me remind you, was locked in the shark cage so he wouldn't interfere in the match, interferes in the match, throws the world's tiniest chain down to Butch Reed, who wraps it around his fist, goes to strike Simmons. Simmons ducks, picks him up, drops him with a spine buster for that 1, 2, 3, which I actually kind of enjoyed. Usually in that situation, the babyface ends up with the weapon and using it, but instead, Ron Simmons, being a good guy, uses his own wits, uses his own ability, and defeats Butch Reed all on his own. It was really nice to see before the era of Stone Cold and anti-hero babyfaces took over the world of pro wrestling. And now we come to what is truly the main event of the show, in my opinion. The match that everyone talks about when it comes to Superbrawl. The match that I've heard about my entire life, as the WCW World Tag Team Championships are defended as the Steiner brothers take on Lex Luger and Sting. And this is a very important match in our household because this is the match where my dad learned that the most terrifying person in my mom's household wasn't my papa, and it wasn't my mom. It was my nana. Ah, there we go, baby. Come on, Lexi. Oh, no, don't you. Oh, that son of a bitch. Get your. Lex, I swear to God, don't you let him beat him now. Yeah, she was pretty loud the whole ass match, and it's honestly well deserved because this is one of the best tag matches that I have seen this year, if not in my entire life. It begins with a video package, which is actually set to some weird orchestral music. It's supposed to get you pumped up for the match, but honestly, I think one small change could fix things a lot.
You think you're special, you do.
There we go. Now it's a lot better. Now I'm pumped. And then the match begins. And I know this is going to sound weird when I say it, but it kind of just felt like they were actually wrestling. It felt like there was an actual conflict going on, an actual brawl between these two teams that were fighting for WCW supremacy. I feel like in modern day professional wrestling, there are a whole lot of convoluted and over-dramatic spots that aren't really there to serve the purpose of a story, but are more there to serve the very call and response relationship that professional wrestling has with its fans. We know that if the babyface gets beat down by the heels, he's gonna crawl to the corner. We get excited, they pull him back, boo. He crawls to the corner, get excited, pull him back, boo. And then he crawls to the corner, gets the hot tag, yay! It's very call and response. Professional wrestling is like an Irish drinking song, but with actually pretty much the exact same amount of violence. It just feels like in modern professional wrestling, there are a whole lot of tropes and cliches that don't really serve the purpose of storytelling as much as they just feel like steps in a recipe, you know, puzzle pieces to put together in order to see a picture of a good match, but they don't really mean anything. In this match, you had hot tags, you had ref bumps, you had all of those cliches, but they felt more natural. The hot tag wasn't some long drawn out thing with them crawling to each corner. Instead, it was just Rick Steiner being in the bad place at the bad time, getting beaten down by Sting and Luger, and hastily rushes Scott to tag out his fresh partner. It still got that massive pop, but it felt a lot more natural. The ref bump wasn't some confusing thing where the ref gets pulled in front of somebody, gets knocked out, and falls out of the ring and passes out for 30 minutes. Instead, it was just the referee in the wrong place at the wrong time. Lex Luger attempting to rush off Rick Steiner, who had broken up a pinfall, and the ref, unfortunately, just got in Luger's way and got knocked out. Yes, these tropes and cliches were still there, but they felt a whole lot more natural. They didn't feel like something that had been done time and time again. It didn't feel like something with a name. It felt like something that was just a beat in a story being told. This is also the match where I honestly felt that magic of pro wrestling for the first time in a while, since probably WrestleMania this year, to be honest with you, because I wasn't taking that many notes. Instead, I was just fully immersed in the experience of watching these two teams battle, to a point where I wasn't writing anything down. I was instead just reacting to shit like this.
All right, so Lex out the corner. What just turns that boy inside out? Holy shit! All right, then you're like, all right, gonna go for like a clothesline or some shit. No, just pick the boy up. Pick that boy up. Then here comes fucking Sting, and it's like, okay, he's gonna be like the babyface in peril. No, bitch, clothesline to the outside. And just when you think it's done, what's that? Off the ropes? Fuck you! This match fucking rules!
And literally right after I recorded that video, I sat back and I realized that 33 years later, I was sitting there and reacting to that match and reacting to what was happening the exact same way my Nana did back in 1991. And fuck you, I'm not crying on my YouTube channel. You can't make me, you piece of shit. But I haven't gotten to see her in a while. And in that moment, in that split second of time watching that match, my Nana was there next to me. And she was talking mad shit about the Steiners the whole time. And y'all, I don't care if you like professional wrestling, if you hate it, if you don't like WCW, if you do, that's fucking magic. Anyways, the match ends when Nikita Koloff comes down to the ring, immediately targeting Lex Luger. And then Sting, attempting to save his tag team partner, rushes Koloff, saves Lex, but unfortunately gets knocked out, which allows the Steiners to roll him up and pick up a victory, which was really fun storytelling, because really the question I had going into this match was, could these two top singles guys, Lex and Sting, be able to defeat a seasoned brotherly tag team like the Steiners? Could they coexist as a team? Could they have that same bond that brothers share? And the answer was yes. Much like any brother would, Sting sacrificed himself in order to save Lex, but ironically enough, it was that brotherhood, it was that sacrifice that leads to their downfall. It's fucking fun, dramatic storytelling. And I'll be honest, literally nothing could follow up that match for me. I mean, I sat back and had like a full-on existential euphoria come over me, which is a really weird thing to say about a match featuring this guy.
I'm the man with the Big Dipper and satisfaction's coming.
But the show must always go on even when it doesn't need to, which is why up next for the WCW United States Championship, we have the man known as the Enforcer, Arn Anderson, taking on beautiful Bobby Eaton. And it's kind of a really interesting matchup, as Arn Anderson was, of course, an established tag team guy with the Minnesota Wrecking Crew and the Four Horsemen, who had finally established himself as a single star with the WCW US belt, taking on Bobby Eaton, a guy who was an established tag team specialist who was looking to break out and establish himself as a single star. It was kind of a passing of the torch moment that was really fun. It was a lot more mat-based and technical than the previous bout, but it still managed to hold my attention, which is not something I could say for a lot of like early 90s professional wrestling. The match ends when Arn's partner in the Four Horsemen, Barry Windham, rushes down to the ring, attempting to distract Eaton, but at the last minute gets attacked by Flying Brian Pillman. The low blow earlier in the night comes back to bite Windham in the ass, which allows Eaton to rush to the top rope and take out Anderson with his Alabama Jam leg drop for the 1, 2, 3, and securing his spot as the brand new WCW United States Champion. It wasn't really anything to write home about, but I enjoyed it nonetheless. And then we arrive at the main event of the evening as we determine who the true world's champion is, with Ric Flair taking on Tatsumi Fujinami for the World's Heavyweight Championship in what is one of the most convoluted and confusing stories I've ever heard of in the world of professional wrestling. Just give me a minute, let me see if I can explain this to you guys. So you remember that urban legend, right, about King Kong versus Godzilla, where everyone said if you saw the film in Japan, Godzilla won. If you saw it in America, King Kong won. That's almost exactly what happened here, as in Japan, at the Tokyo Dome, Tatsumi Fujinami defeated Ric Flair to become the world's heavyweight champion. However, in America, WCW said that since Tatsumi threw Flair over the top rope, he was disqualified, meaning that Flair was still the champion. So, it's this big question of, is Flair champion? Is Fujinami the champion? Also, there's some weird politics going on with the NWA championship, which is currently being merged into the WCW belt, and it is a weird combining of lineages, and this is either a title versus title unification match, or Flair's defending the title against Fujinami. I'm not sure. It is extremely confusing, but let's just get to the match. Now, I'm going to say this as bluntly as possible. I fully fell asleep during this match. I fully passed the fuck out. Like, I remember watching it, and like Fujinami was struggling to bridge out of a pin, and I was like, that's a really nice bit of realism to kind of show how exhausted they are. And then I woke up during the credits, like I fully knocked myself out. It's not that the match was bad. I'm sure it was a great main event for the time. It's just that it was these two titans in their field going against each other in this matchup that had been built up with so much anticipation, only for the match to kind of just end in a whimper. So once again, wrestling really hasn't changed that much in 30 years, huh? And of course, the big story of this match is that it is a tale of two referees. A Japanese referee in the ring serving as the main official, and an American referee around the outside of the ring. Wonder what's gonna fucking happen here? Wonder what's gonna go on? Will bullshittery arise? Let's find out as we get to the end of the match, and Ric Flair kicks out of a roll-up attempt and sends Fujinami skull first into Tiger Hattori, knocking out the Japanese official and allowing Flair to roll up Fujinami, and Bill Alfonso rushes in the ring and counts it 1, 2, 3, securing Ric Flair's spot as the real world's champion of WCW, and leaving Superbrawl on a bit of a whimper, to be honest with you. But you know, honestly, I didn't really go into this show expecting anything more than a whimper, and instead, I got a show with a lot of tremendous action back and forth, a look back at an earlier era of wrestling that wasn't tainted by commercialization and all the one second, y'all. That's fucking Oz. Why is Oz here? No, Oz was not on Superbrawl. I watched the tape. Oz was not on. Give me a minute, y'all. Hold on a second. Let's see here. Wikipedia.com, Superbrawl 1, and oh, that's a whole lot of show that just was not here. Note, matches 3 through 7 were not included on the original VHS release. Okay, so fucking, alright, half the fucking show just was not on the VHS, I guess. That's sick. Awesome. Give me a second, y'all. I'll be right back. Alright, cool, let's try to speedrun this shit. So basically, Dan Spivey and Ricky Morton have a wrestling match, Tommy Rich and Nikita Koloff have a wrestling match, Johnny B. Bad does whatever the fuck this is. He says that he should have been born a little girl for some reason. I'm not really sure what that's all about. Dustin Rhodes and Terrence Taylor have a wrestling match. The York Foundation seems pretty fucking cool. Big Josh has 2 whole-ass bears with him. Paul Heyman's a cowboy. Stan Hansen has way too much dip in his mouth. Heyman quits WCW. And then, fucking Oz. You know, I wasn't gonna talk a lot about Oz, because fuck, it's Oz, like, what's there to talk about? But we gotta get in this shit, because, like, everything's green, and then a full-ass community theater set shows up behind the normal set, and everything's green. There's a random dude just being like, fucking Oz is coming, or whatever. And there's a tiny wizard man, and then actual Dorothy, 10-man scare, whole squad, whole gang there. They run up. This is taking about 5 minutes, by the way. It's a lengthy entrance. They all go up, and then big-ass Kevin Nash is there in the weirdest rubber I don't want to be here right now mask I've ever seen. And then, when you think it can't get any fucking weirder, shit explodes, and then a Jimmy Hart cover of Another One Bites the Dust start playing as Oz and Little Oz walk to the ring. And then he gets in the ring, takes off the old man mask, so I guess he's just a normal dude who's not a giant spooky wizard. I'm not really sure how that works. And then it's just Kevin Nash in gray hair and gray beard, and he just looks over at Tim Parker as like fucking Twink Destroy Mode activate and just beats the shit out of this dude. Wrecks him, power bombs him, pins him 1, 2, 3. Whole time there's a fucking monkey watch. Oh, did I bring up the monkey? Lil Wizard has a monkey, so there's a monkey involved now too. And then like all of us are just supposed to go on with our lives. Just go on with the rest of this wrestling show? Like a giant fucking wizard didn't just show up, beat the shit out of the guy, and leave with a monkey? Like, how am I'm supposed to just live normally after all this shit just happened? So basically, the first ever Superbrawl was a show that featured some of the most insanely charismatic individuals to ever do it. Brutal brawls between blood rivals. It featured a fucking Thunder Doom match and a tag team competition that proved to be a nearly defining matchup for why I love professional wrestling. It also featured a big-ass giant getting pocket sanded, 2 live bears, cowboys covered in back-a-spit, Paul Heyman, and a community theater production of The Wizard of Oz. So to be honest with you, if there was ever a wrestling pay-per-view that I could point to and say was directly responsible for me, I'm actually pretty happy to say this one's it. So there it is, a look back at Superbrawl 1, the show that you can now officially blame for all of the bullshit on this channel, ladies and gentlemen. Meaning if you ever have to leave an angry comment, send it towards Ted Turner, WCW, or fucking Oz, I guess, wherever you want to leave it. But of course, if you got something nice to say, leave it in a comment down below. What'd you think about the episode? Do you like these retro reviews? Would you like to see more of them? What shows should I check out? Let me know down below. I've been talking for an hour about Superbrawl, yo. It's been a lot. But of course, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. That way you get some Fight Boys in your feed every single week. And never forget, folks, that when you're a Fight Boy, you're a Fight Boy for life.